the meeting to order. Roll call.
Justin Allen,
Here.
Eduardo Quiroga,
Here.
Melissa Amici,
Here.
Cristina Ariga,
Here.
Teresa Fonseca,
Here.
Michelle Romani.
She said she's on her way.
Yes. If you do have
Any citizens' comments? Anybody sign up for citizens' comments?
Yes, of course. I don't have any cards, but I don't know if it's regarding the item. You can speak in behalf or against the item when they open.
Yeah,
Is it regarding the item? Is it regarding the item on the agenda?
Oh, these are
We'll
citizen
call the
comments.
public hearing and then we'll allow you to speak. So do I have a motion to open the public hearing? Second. So we open the public hearing. Item A, new improvements to existing structure, new mural. Location, lots 8, 9, and 10, block 70, Western Division, commonly known as 1219 Matamoros Street. Property owner, Laredo Central Plaza LLC, Tomas Izaguirre Jr., owner applicant. Representative, City of Laredo, Maria Solis, Public Libraries Director, and Sandra Gonzalez, artist. Historic landmark, locally designated historic landmark, Saints More Building, AKA Rialto Hotel. Do we have a presentation?
Do you?
Hello, this, I don't know, she's the one. The middle one, okay. Hello, good afternoon, and thank you so much for being here for this special meeting. I'm here to present more specific information about the technique from Philadelphia. So Philadelphia Mural Arts program, they're the ones who developed this technique. And it's very convenient for the artists, and also it allows the people to be part of it. So just a little bit for those people that were not here in the last meeting. I was born and raised in Tamaulipas, Mexico, and I came here to Laredo in the year 2000, and I have 2 master's degree. My latest degree is the Master of Fine Arts degree from the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. And then after my education there, I decided to stay longer so I can learn the technique of mural making. And currently I work as an art teacher at West Oso High School in Corpus Christi, Texas. So this is some background information about the City of Philadelphia Mural Arts Program. So it was founded in 1986 by the current executive director, Jane Golden. So this initially began as an anti-graffiti program, and then since then they witnessed all the positive aspects that all these murals created in the city. And then from there, in 1989, shortly after they began, that's when they developed this technique, which I'm gonna be showing you some pictures. So this technique is commonly known as parachute cloth or polytap non-woven material. So everything, and I brought the fabric in case if, because I know when I say it, maybe it's hard to picture, but this is the material that we use. So it comes on a big roll, about 60 feet. And then we cut it into sections. So we cut it into 5 by 5, so it will be easier to install it as a grid. So this is exactly what is used. And then after we cut it into sections, this fabric, it gets primed. So we prime it twice, so we have a better adhesion on the wall. Then once it's primed, then we draw the design, and then from there we move on. And then that's when we do it in the studio, and we also invite the community. We go to different community events, and then people can come and join, and they will paint by number. They will follow the instructions. And this is the fabric. It has been primed, and it's already painted with 2 coats of paint. So this is how it feels, and then this is ready to be installed on the wall. So in a minute, I can pass it around so you guys can feel it, see it for yourself. So this technique has proven to withstand the elements over a period of 20 to 25 years. So they have seen that a mural would last even longer if you paint it using this fabric. And this also, it adds an extra, it's almost like adding another, very thin skin on the surface, so it will last longer. And that's what they discovered, and they have been using this technique. And then I also, I did research about what they do when they encounter, a building that has been, designated historical or is in a historical building. So if the building or neighborhood is designated historic, artists are only allowed to paint on stucco walls. It is prohibited to paint on historic brick, even if the brick has already been painted. So they're very specific about that. It's only if it has plaster, and it's the wall that we have at the Rialto Hotel, is the perfect wall here in the city that follows this criteria, because it already has the plaster, already has the stucco in there. I'm not painting on the original brick. I'm just painting over, a newer wall. So that mural that you see on the screen was painted directly on the stucco wall. And then after the Historic Commission in Philadelphia approved their proposal. The next slide, that was the first mural painted using this technique. So it was in 1989. And it was, it was really nice just to find out that mural. I actually live about 2 blocks away from that mural. So I used to see it every day on my way to go to school. And then all I saw was vibrant colors. And from the research that I did, I didn't find anything that it has been restored. It still has been there standing, and they use that technique. And they painted that building. The building where it's painted is built in 1915. Then you see an older photo. That's when it was being installed. So that mural was university applauded, so it showed the murals have the potential to be great. The level of expectation was raised. And then, so this allowed the artist to work in the studio and also invite, some part of the community to be part of this. And then once it was painted, he went outside and installed it. And like I said, it has been standing there for about 29 years. So it has exceeded the expectations of when they say, it will stand between 20 to 25 years. Then this building, that one is also a very similar case of what we have in downtown with the Rialto Hotel. So that there used to be a building right where you see that, vibrant mural. So they, at some point in the 1990s, they had to just, remove the building. But that has been painted. So that one is very recent. That mural that you see was just created this year in the summer. So they had the mural dedication on October of this year, 2018. And it was actually, and it was created by the same artist. So that's the previous design. So that was painting in 1998, that mural. And then at some point they decided that they wanted to, give it some maintenance. And it wasn't that it was fading or anything. And I used to walk by that area because the academy was located about a block away from that building. But they decided they wanted to just update the design. It was about the same concept, talking about, the plants, the flora and fauna of Philadelphia and the water system. But they wanted to, just make it a little more modern. So they decided to do it. And the building, where the wall, as you saw in the previous, that's the building. So they're doing it on the facade, on the back, on the parking lot of that building. And that building dates back from 1911. So that building, as you see, so it was, so it began, it's for the Order of Elks, and it has a long history. And I just could not find if the building is a historical site, but it has been standing there since 1911. And then they painted a mural on the wall. And as you see, I also found some pictures of the mural being painted on the type of fabric. And again, it allows the community to be part of it. And it's all, they don't even need to be experienced at painting. It's, like I said, paint by number. And usually, everything has been selected for the community to make it easier. And just given that empowerment that they can also be part of this. So that's during the installation, and that's the same size as what I brought. So that's a 5 by 5 foot polytab fabric, and they go one by one and install it. So that one, they're actually doing it on top of the previous design that you saw, the previous mural. And then you see an aerial view of the building. So you see that it's right on the side, facing the parking lot. And again, it's in the same situation that we have here in downtown Laredo. And I found one more example. So this mural was painted at the Trust Company PNC Bank, dated from 1917. And this building has, at first it was called the Continental Bank of Philadelphia, and then it had changed. So I found those historical photos of that, the same location. And again, it dates back from 1917. And they used the same side facing the parking lot on that building, the facade. So here we see, once again, we see another photo. And it's very vibrant, and again, it was created using this technique, using that fabric technique. And then this other beautiful building dated from 1913. This one, I also live by the neighborhood, so I was also fortunate to walk by and you're seeing, that what a mural can do for a community. It just changes the whole neighborhood. I mean, it could be, it could be sketchy, it could be a little bit, like low income, but these works, these masterpieces, they just bring value to the buildings and to the community, to the neighborhood. And I think they're just great examples of something positive that can happen in a city. And people, are attracted to that. They want to go and take photos next to these murals. So this building now, it's an apartment complex, but again, if you see the architecture, that was built in 1913, and now it has that beautiful mural. And over here, this is the South Philadelphia High School. It opened in 1907. However, it was remodeled in 1955, and now, right as you're speaking, they're creating murals along with the students, and they're covering the whole walls using this technique. And you can see it better. I wanted to show you these images because you can see better that this fabric will actually take, once you apply on the wall, it would take the texture. Like it would look like if you painted directly, like you see the bricks. And that's, if you apply it correctly, you have to remove all the extra glue, the air balls, then it would take the texture of the wall. So that's really neat. And you see another, it's the same location. You see, little by little how everything was painted, and then you go and install it. Then that building, I actually worked on that building. That was Bessie Casañas. She was the designer of this beautiful mural, and it was painted on this medical building that was built in 1935. And I saw that, again, all the positive things that happened with that mural, that the people that used to work there and the patients themselves, they helped paint this mural. And this is in Arizona, and I just wanted to, besides just Philadelphia, I wanted to show you an example. I found this beautiful mural created on a historic neighborhood in Arizona. And again, it's colorful and it's depicting, their culture in there. And Yosa, now I'm gonna go, briefly, step by step of this process. So again, that's how in the studio, you can put it, laying down on a table, like to let it dry, or you can hang it like that, what you see in the photos. And then all the colors, everything is pre-mixed, and I'm using the highest quality paint that there is in the market for murals, and so that's why I'm guaranteeing. And at the end, I'm gonna show you part of the contract where it says that I'm responsible for the 10 years. And then once everything is painted, you go section by section and you start installing it. And I also brought a glue in case if you would like to see the bucket. It's here on the floor. And that's me driving the aerial lift. So that building was first painted, and then from there we just continued covering the whole city block, and all of those buildings were dated, from the 1940s. And that's some pictures from the mural that I created in Corpus Christi. But just to give you an idea, that we can bring the community together by doing this technique. And it's really, it's very, it helps a lot, to create an impact. So that was one day of painting. I just had a lot of people coming because they were really excited. They saw in the news, they wanted to be part of it. I had many people, and only one morning we painted 14 of those panels that are 5 by 5, and I was just very happy just to see the other reaction of people wanting to be part of it. It was greatly covered by the local media in Corpus Christi. And then there you see all the panels laying on the floor because I wanted to make sure, everything was there and everything was aligning. And then of course, you go back and once it's on the wall, then you make sure everything seems seamless. So that was in the summer. That's when I had just finished teaching in Alexander High School. Then as soon as I had the first weekend off, I went to Corpus Christi and installed it. And that's the whole mural. What you see there, all the rolls of fabric, that's the entire mural. I had 65 of those panels painted, ready to be installed. And that's me and my friend who came from Philadelphia to help me install it. And then we went down, one by one. And this is the same plan that I would love to do here in Laredo. I would like, because I have been hired to do this in another cities, but now I want to bring it back to my community here. And you see that, that's a close-up of how it gets installed. And you need two people, especially, if you're like a small woman. So then you put it on the wall, and then from there you have to have this squeegee, this tool, to remove all the excess of glue or air bubbles that might happen. Then that happened a little bit, once I painted that one in Corpus, I wanted to teach this technique in Alexander High School when I was there, so we did a mural outside my former classroom, and it was awesome because the students got to learn this technique, and they were responsible to install the small fabric that they had. So they painted it, they drew it, and then they installed it on their own. And of course, I supervised the whole process. Then, so that was in New Mexico. That was last summer. So they were seeing the photos in social media, what I'm doing over here in Corpus, and in what I was doing with my students. So I was invited to go to Hobbs, New Mexico, to teach this technique. So I was there for a week, and they wanted to learn this technique because they wanted to bring this beautiful, process to their communities. Those were the art teachers from that the school district. So we did that mural in 5 days. At the outlet shops, I created that. That's here in downtown. So that one, as you see, it's any surface that you can install this fabric on any surface. I have done it on wood, and I have done it on metal, like how they're the transformer boxes or electrical boxes, for the traffic lights. So those my students were part of it, the art club, and they really had a great time. And still there, all the colors still there, and that happened a year and a half ago. And now I just came across those photos that they're using, that they're promoting it as a hotspot, to take photos and promoting the city of Laredo. So that's something that I feel that, I have the knowledge and I have the passion to bring downtown. And so I just would love to have the opportunity to paint the mural. And that was in my classroom, again, so that's the library mural, just to show you again, the collaboration, it becomes teamwork, everybody's helps each other. And for those that haven't seen the mural in Corpus, that's the before, it looks like, any ordinary building. And this one is much bigger of what we have here, the Rialto Hotel, the one, where you see the before and after. And every day, all the time, whenever I pass by or I'm in downtown, I always see people taking pictures. And that became a landmark in Corpus Christi. And that's part of my contract, just to, again, saying that I'm responsible for, any maintenance, if it's any normal wear and tear, or any repairs of bubbles on fabric. So I'm responsible for the first 10 years, and then after that, if in case if some restoration services can be rendered, then the client is welcome to contact me after those 10 years. But again, and usually, regardless of technique, the lifetime of a mural, it varies depending. But this technique has shown that it will last longer. This technique, and again, if you would like to, feel the material, I brought it here, and I have the glue, and that's my concept. That's my proposal, and hopefully we can make it into a reality. So, if you have any questions, I'm here.
I know at the last presentation, or at your initial presentation a couple of weeks ago, you said that the lifespan of the parachute cloth, the way it was going to be affixed, was 20 years?
Well, right now, at the beginning of the presentation, I show an example. The very first mural that was created using the technique was in 1989, and it's still standing. So it has been already almost 30 years, and it's still there intact. It has not been restored. And I used to live by that building, by that mural, and I saw, I was witness of how vibrant it is and how beautiful it still is after 30 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, let me go back to the presentation that was done last time. And as part of the discussion, there were a couple of questions that were asked. And I believe that the city submitted the letter from this building committee or the building department correcting the fact that they had indicated that the project was only paint. I believe I saw that in the
Mr.
package.
Linares is here to
Okay.
explain that.
Okay, and so that was one item. The other item was our concern of using the permanent adhesive on historical material. And I said I would research with Texas Historical Commission, and I did. And I believe that was, the third item would have probably just been the fact that the ordinance did not take into consideration the landmark board guidelines, or a blending of when a mural would be done on a historical district or in a historical building. So I believe those are the three topics that we need to address, unless any board member has any other topics to address. I know we only have a limited amount of time, so I don't want to, discuss a topic that is irrelevant at this point for this decision.
Yeah, I think those are the three.
Okay. Do we want to discuss those? Do we want to allow other comments?
I guess we can allow the comments and then discuss. You have
Okay,
enough
'cause-
people here.
Yeah, because this is the first discussion, or the first presentation, and it took 25 minutes, so.
Just
if
remember,
we
it's a
can keep it
public
short.
hearing, so we have people to
Okay,
speak.
and do we give them 5 minutes or 3 minutes?
3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. All right, let's do that.
Ask if there's anybody from the public.
Yeah, already did.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. I believe we have 2 people that are going to be speaking.
Good afternoon, Board. My name is Tomas Izaguirre. I am the present owner of the Samesmore building, but I say present owner because I'm well aware that this building really belongs to the people of Laredo. It's everybody's been in this building at one time in their lives, if you're old enough, and I take that responsibility very seriously. I took over complete ownership in about 5 years ago, and I really want this building to maintain itself and to have some pride for the people of Laredo in this building. And I just wanted to show you how that wall came about. That wall used to be the Delegatus building, and if I could, I can show you. If I can approach.
Yes.
This is the Delegatus building that was built right next to it. This is the Delegatus building. I realize I'm preaching to the choir when I'm talking history here, but when we first bought this building, Mr. Sam Meyer owned the building is adjacent to us. And we, my partner and I, bought, after we had bought the Samesmore building, we asked Mr. Meyer if he would sell it to us, and we wanted to restore it. And he did, towards later in his life, decide to sell it to us, and we realized that it could not be saved. It was built on wooden piers that were gone, and we had to bring it down. And that's when you realize that that building was built before the Samesmore building. So the people that built the Samesmore building had to forget about putting brick on it. So it's all it is concrete and rebar. And all they did was plaster it and paint it. So the mural is going on concrete. It's not going on brick. Because I do realize that when you want to paint a brick, if it's an old brick, you don't paint over it, because it kind of deteriorates the brick. But we're not painting on brick. This is just the concrete side where the Delegatus building was. So that I just wanted to make that clear that we're not painting on the brick. We're not doing anything on the brick. It's already, it was created when that building came down. And what I do want to tell you is that what I want to do is create a nice sitting area using the lumber from that building. So those timbers are over 100 years old. And inside the Rialto, we actually made a really nice piece of furniture with those timbers. So if you want to visit, I can show you, what over 100-year-old lumber looks like, and it looks like just wonderful. And again, I'm very excited about this project. I think it's something that Laredo Downtown needs, because we've been through some very difficult times. I'm sure you all know how difficult it is to do business downtown.
Thank
And,
you. Thank you.
And,
We have 3 minutes, so
okay.
I appreciate your comments.
I just wanted to say one more thing. I visited Miami about 6 months ago, and there's an area in Miami called the Winfield area where it's all old buildings. And what Miami did was they got artists from all over the world to do this to their old buildings. And it is now the number one tourist attraction in Miami. So I think that says a lot about what murals can do for the downtown and maybe La Azteca. It's exciting. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Do we have anybody else to speak?
Good afternoon, Board. Margarita Araiza, Executive Director of Webb County Heritage Foundation. We're just here to express our concern about the pace of this, pardon me, of this project and how it was brought to the Landmark Board last instead of first. It seems to have been approved by various other offices and bodies of government before ever reaching a Landmark Board, which seems to be the opposite schedule that it should have followed. I don't see how other people are approving these kinds of projects in this area without having consulted any of you first, and that is very concerning to us. We feel that you are opening the door with this project to further projects within the historic districts and on designated landmarks that are either uninformed, unplanned, or unfortunate. We feel there are many alternatives to this technique, for one. And second, I wish to make clear, first of all, I guess I should have said from the beginning that there is no objection whatsoever to the idea of painting murals or a mural project or public art in the historic districts. But I think this is very ill-advised, the way this is progressing. I think this body needs to create a more systematic way to proceed with these kinds of projects, or we are once again, as a city, embarking on these haphazard ideas that end up really just not being very helpful. And I urge you to reconsider this. Again, we're not opposed to the idea of mural projects or murals or public art. We only wish to have a more thoughtful, informed manner of progressing with any project of this kind in the historic districts and on landmarks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no other public comments, do we have a motion to discuss the project?
I move to close the public hearing and discuss.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I think part of the situation that we're in right now is that, in effect, the cart has been put before the horse. An ordinance is already in place. Granted, we are a creature of city council. So it is an odd placement for this matter to come before the board, given the fact that number one, it was approved by ordinance, and we have to bear in mind that whatever we decide as a group is going to be superseded by council, by the ordinance, and that's what we're faced with now. Having said that, perhaps a compromise would be, given that this has already been approved, perhaps maybe in the future, having a discussion with council to perhaps maybe amend the ordinance at a future date, so that way we can determine the ramifications that will be had on future buildings. Obviously, I spoke to my councilman about it, since he was the one who authored the ordinance. And we both agreed, for example, buildings like San Agustin Cathedral, which has every historical district designation known to man on it, wouldn't be affected without having to contact the state, possibly the National Preservation folks. A building like that wouldn't be one of the ones targeted for a mural. But right now, any action we take would kind of be moot at this point. Any action in the negative would be moot, since there already is an ordinance in place.
Well, I also got.
Can I ask
Sure.
staff for clarification if that's correct, or what has precedence over our decision?
I don't understand your question, Madam Chair. What is,
Uh,
there is the first mural that it comes to the board for approval.
Right.
So
If we were
this would
to
be set by
deny,
precedent.
if the board were to deny the mural, would the city council then make the decision, or would our decision stand?
Every item that is denied by the board, NER, district board, any other board, goes to council.
As
to
an appeal?
Mhm.
As an appeal
That's
process?
I would like to say something in regards to that. I actually did hear from my council person, my councilman Albert Torres, and he fully supports my concerns with the way that this is being adhered to the building. He did say that he does recommend maybe it going back to council so that they can reconsider and open up a discussion to put in the guidelines in place that we need to implement murals into the downtown area while safeguarding our historic buildings. With that said, I did reach out to a colleague of mine, Ed Mesa, who has done a lot of work in the South Texas region. He's worked through Main Street programs as a consultant. He has consulted with museums. He's consulted with downtown areas. He is now the downtown manager in Harlingen, and he oversees the murals program there. The mural program in Harlingen is actually one of the spotlight programs for the Texas Historical Commission. And the big difference between us and them is that they have murals specifically mentioned in their guidelines, which is something we do not have. We do not have the tool to move forward with okaying something like this. We don't have a guide. Philadelphia, I looked up their guidelines also. They have many pages on what you can and cannot do. So when they go to landmark board, they have a guide. They know what to approve. They know what not to approve. And right now, we would be setting a precedent on a designated landmark. Whether it's San Agustin Cathedral or the Samesmore building, it still has a designation. And I feel that we would be opening the door to allowing something that may have not been allowed if we had those guidelines in place. With that being said, we're not opposing a mural in the downtown area. My concern is this specific building with this specific designation. There has been topics brought up of alternative sites to be considered in the downtown area, which there are other places that might be considered. But with that being said, I think I don't know if it's premature to make a motion, but I know I have a motion to make, and if it should go forward, then it goes forward, and if it doesn't, it stops here. Okay?
I do have a comment regarding Mr. Mesa's email, which was shared with all of us, and I wish it would have been shared with the public. The thing is that we're kind of comparing apples to oranges. Yes, it's great that Harlingen is a spotlight city and that they have these regulations, but in his correspondence, you did in your query mention the ordinance. His response didn't mention any type of ordinance, and that is the big difference, because that's what we are bound with right now, the ordinance. And so, again, whatever we do as a board will probably be overturned on appeal with council, because, again, the bottom line is an ordinance that is already in place. Now, ordinances are living documents that can be amended.
Right.
And I believe that when this ordinance was discussed, a former board member who was my predecessor was in on the discussions, but for reasons unknown to me, this either may have happened before some of us came on board or what have you. The rest of us weren't advised or weren't filled in on the discussion. It's not so much that we're crying over spilt milk, but I would recommend, given the time-sensitive nature, it was the intent to have this mural up for Washington's birthday, which is in February. And so I would recommend that we would proceed. I understand there are concerns. I know I have raised concerns about items. But in this case, we would be pitting ourselves against the council that appointed us, because we're talking about an ordinance now that's already in place.
Let me then report on the comments that I received from the Texas Historical Commission. So as a preservation board, we are responsible for the historic fabric and specifically the historic material on this building. And so paint is in our guidelines. The addition of paint on a historic building. It would be approved if the paint was going to be not just repainting with historic colors or the original material, or enhancing it. In this case, Texas Historical Commission's concern is the use of a permanent material other than, a paint that can be replaced. Their comment was, how does this affect the building, historic building, and is it reversible? And that's the language that they use. So in light of that, I would say that this particular product it's being presented to us is not reversible because it was identified as a permanent glue or adhesive that would be used. Now, I went by the building to look at it because Texas Historical Commission also mentioned the concern when an interior wall is exposed and becomes the exterior of a building. And many buildings have had moisture problems because of it. I did go by and I see a lot of cracks that have been at times repaired. I don't know the history of it. Just driving by, I took some pictures, and there are cracks. So one, advised not as being a member of this board, but just as per my profession, I would say that any agreement between the city and the building owner needs to address whether what is being done is appropriate, if it's going to damage or have any effect to the existing improvement. So those are my comments. I did want those to go on record before we make a motion.
And perhaps the solution here would be to find
Alternate buildings.
an alternative where we can
Alternate sites.
kind of use this as a model for moving forward and writing our guidelines.
Yeah, I think that's the real concern, is that we don't have an ordinance in place that addresses murals in a historic area. Yes, and a historically designated area. Yes, we have an ordinance in place for murals throughout the city, but it's very different when you're talking about, historically designated areas, specifically downtown. And this is setting a precedent, as Christina said, and we do want murals. This is something that even in different boards that I'm on is something that we want, but we have to develop the ordinance that will support it so that we don't just have random murals popping up on historically marked buildings after this, and it would be hard, moving forward to stop
It's
that.
almost like we have two conflicting ordinances.
Right.
But there's been a lot of great comments made, and I can understand the issue of precedence. But I think we need to take it on a case by case, because that wall, there was an adjacent building that was there.
She's gonna explain it.
There was an adjacent building, so it's considered a zero lot line where the building is connected to it. They demolished the other building. The landowner has taken a proactive approach to clean that surface up, because that wall is not a brick wall. It's a plaster wall on, maybe the substrate may be poured in place concrete or something else. But it seems like this building, you look at the first photograph that's being presented, and it's a canvas. So if we look at it, there's already paint on that wall. The content itself, I don't think it's the board's obligation to look and approve the content, because that should be a separate board. And I think someone mentioned maybe there should be an arts or a mural
There is.
There is
committee.
an arts commission.
And I'm not sure what their discussion on this issue is, but I do understand this is a canvas. It's there already. Regardless if there's any artwork that's going on it, there's still paint or something that's gonna go on that wall.
I wanted to, I guess, be allowed if I can just make a question or comment. If anything, the ordinance that you guys are mentioning, are you guys talking about the sign ordinance or
The
is it
mural,
something
a
specific?
mural ordinance.
A mural ordinance.
Is there a mural ordinance for the downtown area?
No, if anything, there is a mural
It's
ordinance
within the
on the
sign.
building department. I just wanted to clarify if that's the one
So we
you're
would not
mentioning.
be going against a mural ordinance in the downtown area?
No, no, I guess what I wanted to kind of clarify is the mural ordinance when it comes to the sign ordinance in general, the only content that we worry about is more specific if it's advertising the business name or the business content. That's one component. And so when it comes for this section, what it's trying to do is pretty much saying, since it's not a business aspect, I guess in essence, it's kind of like none of our business to look into it. The other component is it's the paint component. That itself doesn't require a permit on the building aspect. When this section this ordinance got made, the only purpose in no manner was meant to be, the first step. If anything, this is just pretty much advising that this is not a business aspect, it's not a structure, it's not such. And so there's nothing with us. If it came first with us, I don't know if that's what is being implied. If it came first with us, in no intent, it was because we told them, oh, we're first, they're second. It was just because they just stopped by because it was part of this ordinance. And so the thing I do want to clarify with this ordinance is just on the business aspect and as the structure. Since it's neither, when it comes for building, it's none of our business of what gets done. What we made comment with them is because it's a historic building, we did recommend to them, because it's such, please come to this board. And so that comment was made. And like I said, in no sense it was to be rearranging any order or anything like that. And I believe when this ordinance came about, and I'm talking about the whole ordinance, it was more of that the business aspect and structure aspect. Aside of that, we really have we're not trying to impose, encourage anything or such. One thing I would just suggest or recommend is if for some reason, if we ever see something like this on the downtown area, then what we can suggest is even before coming to building and making form of a policy, come with the historic board first and then a second. Because from our part, it's just content and such. This is not a business. It's not promoting the hotel. It's not promoting any rates, anything like that. So at our end, that was the purpose of our letter. It was kind of implying it doesn't have to go through building in any sense. And so we can try to implement that policy to avoid, I guess, a meeting with council, and we can try to promote that. And I don't know if that would serve best for the committee.
So you would say that at the moment, there is really nothing that oversees murals in the downtown area?
Correct, yeah. From this point, it's just specific on business and structure.
Which is kind of what we're trying to get at, that there needs to be something in place for us to be able to move forward.
And that was the other comment from Texas Historical Commission, that we needed a working group to come together to be able to include murals in our guidelines.
Did the Historical Commission make note of the ordinance? Was the ordinance mentioned in your original question to them?
My
Madam
original-
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I did contact Texas Historical Commission, and they stated that it's a local issue, since the building has only a local designation as an historic landmark. The mural, when staff provided a recommendation, was based on those best practices from the state. They don't have any guidelines, they just have best practices, and that's what we review in order to provide a recommendation to you. On those best practices, it says most commonly a municipality's sign ordinance will classify mural as signage. That's what he was referring to. They talk about location. The frame mural, the mural using the boundaries of the building, which it complies with that. Painting a portion of the wall instead of the whole wall, that complies with that. The only thing that they recommend is to consider how many murals will be within a certain area. But they don't provide any, specific distance. They also state very clear that any surface, paint or mount murals or other similar forms of visual art on the side or rear walls of the building.
Is that best
The mural,
practices?
this is from the state.
Is it through the Main Street program or through which program?
Through THC, Texas
Yeah,
Historical.
which
Commission.
division of THC? Which division?
It's Miss Clydes. She's the one that
That I
you
spoke
talked
to.
Yes,
Okay.
Madeline Clydes.
Yes.
That's a preservation.
Just for clarification, Ms. Sanchez, if this building had been a state designated landmark, then that would change things, right?
The property owner will have to get clearance from the state,
Okay.
but that's not. the
Right,
case
but
with
that's
this
not an
building.
issue here, but just for
That's why
the
they-
sake
they
of
stated-
clarification, so that way the public can understand that there's a difference between local and state and
Correct.
how
So
the
it's
process changes.
Up to the board, and it's gonna be presented. Yes, might be more murals in the future. The city is embracing art. It's up to the board to look at those on a case-by-case basis.
And so I'll go back to my comments since I spoke to the same person that you're referring to from Texas Historical Commission. And she indicated that as far as preservation, no, before that, she said that Texas Historical Commission main guide is if it is reversible. If it were paint on an existing brick wall, it would not be reversible. This is plastering a surface which was meant to be an interior wall. Some similar situations has experienced moisture issues. Our responsibility is to protect and guide the treatment of historic materials. When she says ours, she's talking about this board. This board's responsibility is to protect and guide the treatment of historic materials, including the exposed blank south wall of the local landmark. And then I think that's where most of our issues were, is
Right.
the product, the
And
installation product.
I think
So-
in the best practices, you mentioned that it would be classified as a sign.
Paint or mount murals. They don't talk about any specific technique.
Right, no, I know,
It's
but you
either
said something
mounted-
about it going as a sign, that it would be considered a sign, because if we followed our guidelines for
To be
signage, it's
considered
too
within
large.
the
It's
sign
too large.
ordinance.
To be
It-
considered
which
a
is-
sign, in the
right,
site
What the
ordinance.
city did when
Yes. But
the
in-
sign
in our
ordinance.
sign section of our guidelines, this would not comply with our sign
With our sign
requirements.
requirements.
The guidelines for the historic, for the city of Laredo, they don't consider murals at all.
No, I know, but if we were to take it as a sign and look at it as a sign, it would not comply. In our case, the way our guidelines are written, that this mural would not be a sign.
That's the reason why building department is the one in charge to, make sure that if it's a sign, it complies with the requirements
Yes,
for the
and he's basically saying
ordinance.
it's not a sign, so that's why he did not have to issue a building permit. So right now murals are in a limbo state because neither his guideline or ours address murals. And the recommendation that I received this morning from Texas Soil Commission is that we need to think of having a working committee or group to be able to resolve addressing murals in both, from the city's ordinances to the guidelines.
Madam Chair, again, I refer to the line of questioning of the Historical Commission. Was it explained to them?
Yes.
That, number one, like you said, you've already clarified that this is a local ordinance. Number two, this is a locally designated
Yes.
building. Because the thing is, our historic preservation officer has one set of commentary that the same person gave her, which seems to kind of contradict what you've been told. So that's why I'm trying to ascertain the line of questioning involved. Because there might have been a possibility that she could have thought these were two different things altogether.
Regardless what it is, whether it needs to go to the state or not, it is a locally designated landmark. It is a local decision, and our mission is to protect our locally designated buildings. It's to protect our historic districts as a whole. I go back to the same thing, we're going back and forth on the same topic when we just don't have the guidelines in place to move forward on this. with that being said, I think that's our biggest concern here. We need to establish those guidelines before we allow murals in the downtown area. We could maybe work with Ms. Gonzalez on finding an alternative location and writing the guidelines around that to kind of, to incorporate that. That way she doesn't lose her project, but, you know, make it a point to talk to council and let them know we need to have these guidelines in place before we can move forward
Yeah.
on doing
I
that.
would,
And
I
they're
would
great-
add
they're
that
great
it's
concerns.
either,
The-
let me say, I would add that it would be either an alternative place or an alternative method of installation.
No, I
On
think
this
the board
building.
brings up great concerns. The issue here is that city council is the appeal process, but action has already been taken.
Yeah.
So there, you know, we don't take action if there's already been taken by city council,
Yes,
it's
but
already
they,
been
they
approved.
put us in this situation.
And I understand
I don't
that,
think they took
but,
that into
but
consideration.
the thing is that you take the item back to council, they don't have to take action on it because they've already taken positive action on it, they've already voted on it. So there is no appeal process, it's council overrules this board and they've already approved it. And I understand all the concerns everyone's making, but we're just talking about the situation and then, you know, case by case building. So council voted to approve the artwork on this building, is that correct?
And the location and the
There are some
My council
council
member has asked to take it back for reconsideration with explanation of the technique and the historic designation of
Well,
the
then we
building.
would wait for council to take it back to the historic board for further action if they wanted to rescind their vote, but they've already taken action.
Right, and
So I'm not arguing on the comments you're making, I think they're valid comments about there's the precedence factor here. We do need someone to oversee this, we do need some guidelines and language that we can use, but right now it's so broad that we don't have it, and there's a project before us that's already been ruled on.
It has been ruled on, but not necessarily with all the facts.
Right.
And I think we owe to the council our
input,
input and
Well
our.
then, so I guess what we're saying is, I mean, does the council take that action item and rescind it? It's on their plate now.
That is
Because
beyond
this
our
board is
control.
really,
our hands are tied right now with the current ordinance, and the thing is this, we're talking about future possibilities, we're talking about different scenarios, but we're not focusing on the here and now.
But-
And the
but-
here and now,
Yeah,
and I understand the concerns, I share a lot of the concerns, I mean, I've.
but even those
gone-
concerns, those are action items that council votes on as well.
Right.
They can amend ordinances.
But the thing is this, we're looking at the ordinance as is, as was approved, we're looking at a
Which
project.
ordinance?
The present ordinance that, this mural would falls under right now. in the here
There
and
is
now.
no ordinance that the
There
mural
is
falls
no
under.
I don't think there is,
Just
however, there's
clarify-
action that's
just
been
clarify
taken.
There's a signage ordinance.
Nonetheless, we're looking at a council action that has already been taken.
Yes, but this is on our hands now, at this point.
Right, but the thing is, regardless of what we do, the council will probably come back and say, you know what, we're gonna do this anyway.
We don't
because-
know what their action will be. So we just have to take
Yeah,
our
we
responsibility.
don't know what their action will be once they hear our concern and what we need to do to not have this happen again, so that we have all the measures
And I
in
think,
place.
yeah, I'd ask our Madam Chair to see what, what, based on our concerns, how you want us to proceed.
Okay.
What would you-
Well, let's go ahead and
It's already
act on this,
1:02.
let's act on this item. Do we close the
Yeah.
discussion?
Okay, I
And
move to
have a
close
mo-
discussion.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion?
Yes. I move to take this item back to council for reconsideration of the mural or any other murals in the downtown area so that we can express our concerns and have time to talk to council and create the proper guidelines for this board to allow murals in the downtown area to better safeguard our historic buildings.
Do I have a second? All.
Discussion,
Oh,
discussion. If council decides not to take action on it, then it stays as it read when vote was taken. Because they don't have to take it before a vote. What we're asking for is just to implement language for future projects. Is that what the motion that includes, or?
Well,
What I'm getting at is that we're not sure that council will
we
take action on
cannot
it.
approve this
Yeah.
item right now.
Yeah.
this item can, in some sense, is being denied because we don't, I'm asking to take it back to council for
Well, it's not being
reconsideration of
denied because we're
implementation
not
of our
voting on it.
guidelines.
But I guess question is, or comment is, council does not have to act on the item anymore because they've already taken,
That's not
Actually,
within our guidelines to
yeah.
say. That's a legal issue. So all we can do is act on this motion.
Chairman.
We have a motion.
If I may, I would think, I mean, you all need to take some type of action, whether you all, believe you will not, but I think it's obvious that it's gotta be a denial that they don't proceed. But either way, I would recommend as staff that we take it back to city council and let them know of your findings and they can decide at that point. I wouldn't think that we would just wanna go straight, even though it's already been approved, but we would like to inform the council of your findings and of course they can overrule, and-
Yeah, so with the denial of this piece of art, at least they'll know how we
What
feel.
our concerns are.
Right.
What-
So
we can
should
address
I
it.
make that motion again, including that?
No, well,
Yeah.
it's.
but
it's
you're adding the
already-
word denial to it though, right?
We're
Yeah.
denying
We
this
just told them not
mural.
Well, leave it with our.
To
the
reconsider,
way
I mean,
you have it.
would you,
I said to take this item back to council for reconsideration of the mural or any other murals.
Based on our findings.
yeah,
Let's
not
add
approve or
findings.
denial?
You have
There's
to
no
approve or
word denial, but
Yeah.
based on our findings.
But that's what,
That's what it means.
yeah, that's what it means, yeah.
But your intent is to deny it.
The intent is to deny it.
No,
Unless they reconsider our findings.
Right.
So you have to make a motion right now.
We've already tabled once before.
Madam Chair, I think you need to either approve or not approve, because, reconsider means,
Don't approve it because we don't
let's
have the
go over it
tools.
again. And so it really needs to move forward.
And once they reconsider it, it would have to come back.
Yes, so.
Right,
If they reconsider.
right. Okay, so
See,
do
but
I
that's- that-
reword it to denial?
But hold on a second here, that's the confusion, because if the board denies it,
Then they could exercise their right to appeal the decision.
there's no appeal
Correct.
process anymore,
I'm
because
sorry?
the appeal board has already ruled on it.
Well,
So do they
what
proceed or
were-
not proceed?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Their motion in its entirety was to prioritize funds in the amount of 20,000 for this project, to direct staff to allow Sandra Gonzalez access to the Southern Hotel, determine retrofitting to place this mural if this location cannot be used for the murals, and direct staff to enter an agreement with Mr. Isaguirre for Rialto, or consider other possible properties.
That's what we're saying. Yeah.
And direct staff to work with this.
That's what we've been
That's what
saying.
And the
That
Washington
This
celebration.
is not a, it doesn't have
That's
to be
why
this building.
we need, or the item needs action from this board. And then, once the action happens here, then it can move forward, if they so choose, to appeal to the council.
Thank you for clarifying that, because that had not been said to us throughout this
Entire
process.
discussion, not the
Yes.
whole ordinance the way it read, or the whole action item. Okay, so now.
Okay, so, okay, can I
Or did you just?
can I reword this, then?
Yeah,
Okay, I move to deny this mural or any other murals in the downtown area so that we can express our concern to city council and talk to them and to create the proper guidelines for this board to allow murals in the downtown area.
Second.
All in favor? Three? All opposed? Three.
The motion dies because it's deadlocked. Does anybody else have another motion?
I move that we allow the mural to occur with the recommendation that that council will amend the ordinance to factor in the ramifications of murals in an historic building, in an historic district, and to work with the preservation officer and with the Historical Commission to present guidelines for murals.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed?
What do we do? It's 3-3. Motion. I can't-
So the motions died.
Did she
and-
say that it could bid on another
Building.
building?
Mhm. Mhm.
That was
Yeah.
already an option.
Well, do
That
we-
was
do
already
we-
an option.
Okay, do we want to make a motion to relocate the mural to another building?
I think that might be a more suitable word identified.
What are the comments against this building, though?
It's a designated landmark. It is the artwork. The architecture is the
But so-
artwork.
but-
It is
but
part of
see,
our mission
And that's why,
to
no,
save
I
this.
understand that, but that wall, if the landowner hadn't taken a proactive approach to clean that wall wasn't a clean surface when they first demolished it. So, and I strongly believe in a lot of the comments that are being made because of the precedents. The only thing is, on the case by case, there was something that they cleaned up, there's a palette, there's still paint on it, it's either the mural or there's paint. And he can choose any paint that is approved by the board.
Right.
But he's still gonna seal that wall, he cleaned
But
that up.
if the motion is for this mural to be, for the city council to consider an alternate location for this mural, it doesn't mean that in the future that could not be a mural. We just don't have the guidelines to approve this mural at this location.
And it is locally
At this time.
designated, and I don't know if you can change that designation, given all the information
Once
we
you set
got
the
today
precedent.
about it. But if you set the precedent to put it on a historically landmark, even though this is not the original structure and all of that, it's still designated as such.
What keeps the owner from building at that location right now and connecting to the building? Nothing, because there's a zero lot line, he can actually do that.
Yes. And we have guidelines for new construction
Yeah,
adjacent
well,
to the
and
landmark.
right,
Yes.
and those guidelines are specific on the Secretary of Interior's requirements. There isn't anything on the content of the mural. There's a lot of information that's not there before, and there was a good clarification by Ms. Guerra, because on the action that was taken.
But the solution here is not to approve it just because there is no guidelines.
Right.
We need to have those guidelines in place.
It's not brick, it's stucco. It's all stucco. Look.
This indicates if this location cannot be used for the mural, direct staff to enter into an agreement to consider other properties and direct staff to work with. There you go.
Madam Chair, other properties were considered also, and the decision on this one was because it didn't, like you said, it's canvas waiting to be painted.
Mhm.
The other had issues with fire code because they had windows
Mhm.
that could not be, covered. That's the reason why, but other buildings were considered too.
But considered by council?
Yes.
Ms. Collazo, for clarification, what happens when we're at a deadlock?
I would just say, I was just checking, I was texting the attorney, and really it fails. I mean, both motions have failed. I think if you can't reach, obviously it's been twice, then I think we just close it and we'll just move on and just say that there were two motions, but there's no agreement.
We do have
'Cause
three
you're
board
missing
members
someone,
missing.
you
Yeah,
know.
3 board members.
I know.
So,
Can I make a motion as chairman?
You can call for a motion.
I can call for a motion.
Can I change the previous motion?
I can call for a
You can just say
motion
you'd like
and
a-
modify a previous one, or? I'll call for a motion to, well, the hard part is the accepting or denying. Unless we wouldn't be acting on this action unless it's an accept or deny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could always deny it at this location, but
I'll
consider it.
call for a motion to deny the mural at this location with the intended installation method and ask the city council to reconsider a alternate location or an alternate installation method. And to work on to work with us on appropriate guidelines for murals on local landmarks or within the historic districts.
Don't forget, Madam Chair, the board has been reviewing guidelines and the ordinance for the historic part within the Land Development Code for 10 years. Those, you have the option to always present to staff, those are what we would like to see. Remember, there's a process, it has to be presented to Planning and Zoning Commission, and from there go to council. So yes, you can, at any time, can bring, before staff, any revisions that you want to be considered.
Do we need to act on those? And at a meeting, do we need to act on, excuse me,
It's
those?
up to the board, ma'am.
Okay. I called for.
Madam Chairman,
an
is your
action.
concern the fabric itself or
The glue.
the glue, the
That here.
adhesive?
Yeah, it's a permanent glue.
We had to discuss like doing it on a panel and affix the panel. I mean, that's what we talked about the last meeting, and I don't know.
That's what Harlingen does.
Yeah.
When they're on historic buildings, not on designated buildings, but on historic buildings, they use panels. But again, it goes back to them having guidelines that set those standards. I mean, we could go back and forth about the technique. What we need to do is just
Yeah.
let council know that we don't have those guidelines, we cannot make that decision, and because of that, this specific mural on this building.
Can I add to the motion that we create an executive committee to discuss mural guidelines and submit it to staff and city council for consideration at the earliest possible?
As a separate motion or?
Yeah, can you go back and
Yeah, that's
say
just
that
a
motion
in
again?
itself, and can we take action on that motion?
Okay, let's take action. Let's call for a motion to establish an executive committee to,
Madam Chair, you need to make motion on this
On this
item
item.
before you.
Yeah.
Those
Okay.
are.
then
Not on the
it's
agenda.
gotta be one.
Yes, it's
Then
not part
What
of
is
the
the
agenda.
motion that you were making?
I was making a motion to deny the mural in terms of this location or this type of installation at this location, and to make recommendations to the city council based on an executive committee to provide guidelines for murals on historic buildings or within historic districts. We would deny it at this location with this installation.
But the thing is this, they've already gone through several locations, so this was kind of.
That's outside of our jurisdiction, so all we can do is act on this motion.
The only
on
problem,
this.
Madam Chairman, is that we've already denied it. I mean, there hasn't been a vote for it again. I mean, it was tied vote for the denial.
Right. Yes,
So
So-
I'm not sure what other avenue we have, either that or just table the
Well-
item so we can put more items on the
I'm
next agenda.
denied it, I'm recommending that we deny it based on the location and/or installation, so that either one of those two could be changed.
I understand the comments about the adhesive. I'd like to entertain more discussion on that in the future. On the denial, I'm not, the motion is hard for us to vote on because there's two different issues on the
Well,
motion.
they can come back and say, we want, instead of adhering it in this manner, we want to do it this other manner. And then that,
But see, I don't agree with that. I agree with the mural on that building in the first place. So, it just goes,
It's too- yeah, it's too-
it goes back to the same thing. It can't be it needs to be something that we have guidance on. We don't have guidance.
but
which is-
denying a mural at that location is not within our,
Well, it's a designated
Guidelines.
landmark.
yes,
Mhm.
to protect the material.
Right.
Yeah, we have no jurisdiction over the subject matter that is
Right.
used. in
Yeah, you
in the
can-
art.
Consider a motion to deny the adhesive being used, but not the denial on the project, because we've already voted on that.
She showed a sample on another building where the design, the background, for example, in this beige background, if it were actually painted brick. Because she showed an example that had the background as the material, it looked like the building, you know, with the little details. Can you show us that again?
Oh, I think
I'm
we already
sorry,
passed the
Madam Chair, you
discussion.
already closed the public
Okay.
hearing? Are you
Yeah.
gonna?
Okay.
And we're already at 118.
Yes.
Okay, can we all have an audible discussion, please, instead of keeping it amongst ourselves? This is a public hearing.
Yes.
You want to make that motion?
Actually, I would ask that we keep side discussions, either take them to another room or what have you, but this is a public hearing and all discussions should be audible.
Make a motion to maybe deny this mural at this time based on the adhesive process that they want to use. That's something that's not in the guidelines. So that would be my motion.
Do I have a second? Did I second? Am I allowed to second or?
No.
No.
Just don't vote
So,
I
you're,
think it did.
So that
Making a
motion
motion
fails
again,
because
you're-
it didn't have a second.
If I may, I have the city attorney coming down.
Okay.
It's obviously just to be able to provide you some legal guidance, but it looks like we're not going anywhere here.
Yeah,
'cause-
I think we need other
So
board
I
members.
just
to
wanted
weigh in.
her, I just texted her, so she's coming down. And that way you can ask her,
Might have to be out of
so
here.
that we can know and we can proceed, or if the applicant wants to proceed or not proceed.
I think we should just leave it at the 3 and 3.
Christie, she's
gonna
got,
have to just.
yeah, yeah, I guess,
Move to table.
she's coming down. Give them some guidance, so they can move to.
Do I have a motion?
I move to table the item.
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Yes.
The motion passes to table the item.
There's no further discussion then. Okay.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second. I
All in
hope we have
favor?
consensus.
Aye.